My dad left us years ago. Now he wants to walk me down the aisle. When I was 10 years old, my dad walked out the door and never came back. No warning. No big fight. No dramatic goodbye. Just gone. One night, we were a family. The next morning, my mom was standing in the kitchen, staring at a handwritten note, tears rolling down her face. I barely remember what it said. Something about how he wasn't happy and needed space, and this is for the best. It wasn't for the best. It ruined us. My mom struggled to keep us afloat. Bills piled up. We moved into a tiny apartment. I watched her work too, sometimes 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. Meanwhile, my dad, he was nowhere. No child support. No calls. No birthday cards. He just disappeared, like we never existed. And now, 17 years later, he just showed up. I was at a cafe with my fiancé, Matt, going over wedding plans. When I heard someone say my name, I turned, and there he was, older, grayer, but still him. I froze. He smiled, like this was some casual reunion, like we were old friends running into each other. Hey, kiddo. Kiddo, like he had the right to call me that. I didn't even realize I had stood up until Matt put a hand on my arm. Do you want to leave? He asked softly. I shook my head. I wasn't running. My dad sat across from me, still smiling. I heard you're getting married. I clenched my fists. How? Your aunt told me. Of course. My mom's sister had always been too forgiving. She had probably seen this as some beautiful chance to reconnect. Why are you here? I asked. His smile faltered. I wanted to see you, and I was hoping we could talk. I stared at him. Talk about what? He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I know I messed up, and I can't change the past, but I want to be part of your life now. If you'll let me. I didn't say anything. Then he said the words that made my stomach drop. I'd love to walk you down the aisle. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Matt tensed beside me, waiting for my reaction. I let out a short, bitter laugh. You think you deserve that. His face fell. You left. You abandoned me and Mom. You didn't just mess up, you disappeared. You don't get to come back now and act like nothing happened. He looked down. I know, and I'm sorry, but I want to fix things. I pushed my chair back. You can't. I grabbed my bag and walked out of that cafe without looking back. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because my dad wasn't just asking to walk me down the aisle. He wanted back in my life. And I had no idea if I was strong enough to keep the door shut. I didn't hear from my dad for a few days after the cafe. I thought maybe he got the message. That I wasn't interested in some heartfelt reunion. That he couldn't just show up and expect me to forget everything. But then, my aunt called. I heard you saw your dad, she said, her voice careful. I sighed, already annoyed. Did he send you to talk to me? No, she insisted. Then she hesitated. But he did mention that you were a little harsh. I clenched my jaw. I was honest. She sighed. Sweetheart, I know he made mistakes, but he's trying. And I think you should consider giving him a chance. I laughed. A chance? To do what? Pretend he was always there. No, but he didn't try when I was growing up. He didn't try when Mom was struggling to put food on the table. He didn't try when I was crying myself to sleep, wondering why I wasn't enough for him to stay. Silence. Then she said the thing that every estranged child hates to hear. Well, he's still your father. I exhaled sharply. No, he was my father. 17 years ago. And then he left. That was his choice. She sighed. I just don't want you to have regrets. That pissed me off. I don't have regrets, I snapped. But he should. I hung up before she could say anything else. Matt found me in the kitchen a few minutes later, my hands shaking as I gripped the counter. He walked up behind me, rubbing slow circles on my back. Your aunt, I nodded. She thinks I should forgive him. Matt was quiet for a second. Then he asked, do you want to? I turned to face him. No, I don't think I do. And for the first time since my dad had come back, I felt certain. I wasn't a kid anymore. I wasn't that abandoned little girl, waiting for a dad who never came back. I had built a life without him, and I wasn't about to let him walk in now and rewrite history. But I should have known he wouldn't give up that easily, because the next person he reached out to was my mom. I got the text late at night. Mom, call me when you can. We need to talk. I frowned. My mom wasn't the kind of person to send cryptic messages. She always got straight to the point. I called her immediately. She picked up on the first ring. Your father reached out to me. I knew it. What did he want? I asked. She sighed, and for the first time in a long time, she sounded tired. The same thing he wants from you, to be part of your life again. I rolled my eyes. And let me guess, he's suddenly a changed man? He says he regrets leaving, she muttered. That he's sorry. That he wants to make things right before it's too late. I scoffed. Too late for what? Silence. Then she said something that sent a chill down my spine. He's sick. I went still. What? Cancer, she said. He didn't tell me much. Just that it's serious. I didn't know what to say. For years, I had imagined this moment. The day my dad would realize what he had done. The day he would finally feel the weight of abandoning us. But I had never imagined it happening like this. He didn't tell me how long he has, Mom continued. But I think that's why he came back. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. So, what? He wants to walk me down the aisle so he can feel like a good dad before he dies. Mom sighed. I don't know, but I told him it's your decision. That caught me off guard. You don't think I should forgive him? She hesitated. I think you should do whatever gives you peace. I swallowed hard. And what about you? I made my peace with him a long time ago, she said quietly. But you were the one he left behind. This isn't my choice to make. That was the thing about my mom. She had never once told me to forgive him. She never forced me to see things her way. She let me feel my own anger. And now I had a choice to make. I could let him back in, let him walk me down the aisle, let him pretend for a moment that he was the father he should have been. Or I could shut the door forever. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I did know one thing. If he thought that a few months of regret were enough to erase 17 years of absence, he was wrong. I spent the next few days trying to process everything. It wasn't just about whether I should let my dad walk me down the aisle. It was about him, about us, about the 17 years he had spent acting like I didn't exist. And now, suddenly, because he was sick, I was supposed to pretend like none of that mattered. Matt was supportive, never pushing me one way or another, but I knew he was worried. I caught him watching me sometimes, like he was waiting for me to break. I wasn't going to break, but I did need answers. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet my dad one last time. We met at a park, neutral ground. He was already sitting on a bench when I arrived, looking smaller than I remembered. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I sat down beside him. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I didn't think you'd come. Yeah, well, I muttered. I have questions. He nodded like he expected that. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I didn't waste time. Why now? He exhaled. Because I don't have much time left. I studied him, searching for guilt, regret, anything that made me believe this was real. But all I saw was fear, not of losing me, but of dying alone. I shook my head. That's not an answer. Why did you really come back? Do you actually care, or is this just about making yourself feel better before you die? He looked down. I won't lie and say I haven't thought about that, but I do care. I always did. I laughed bitterly. That's funny, because I don't remember you caring when Mom was breaking her back trying to keep us fed. Or when I was a kid wondering why my dad didn't love me enough to stay. He winced. I deserved that. I stared at him, my throat tightening. You don't deserve to walk me down the aisle. Silence. Then he said, what if I told you I just wanted to be there? Not in the spotlight. Not pretending to be the father of the year. Just there. I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't. I stood up. I spent my whole life waiting for you to come back. I cried over you. I ached over you, but I don't anymore. He looked up at me, desperation creeping into his eyes. So that's it. I nodded. Yeah, that's it. His face fell. Please. I shook my head. I'm not doing this for you. I don't owe you a happy ending. Then I walked away. I didn't cry. I didn't feel relief either. I just felt done. And for the first time in 17 years, I wasn't waiting for him anymore. I was free. The day of my wedding arrived, and for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about my father. I was thinking about Matt, about the life we were about to build together, about the people who had actually been there for me. My mom helped me with my dress, her eyes shining with pride. My aunt, who had been pushing for me to forgive my dad, was surprisingly quiet. Maybe she had finally realized that some wounds don't heal just because you want them to. And Andrew? He was nowhere in sight. I hadn't invited him. I was at peace with my decision. But a small part of me still wondered, would he show up anyway? The ceremony started. I stood at the entrance of the aisle, my heart pounding. And then my mom took my hand. Are you ready? She asked softly. I nodded. She squeezed my fingers. I'm proud of you. And with that, she walked me down the aisle. Not the man who left. Not the man who suddenly wanted to play father when it was too late. The person who had actually stayed. As I walked toward Matt, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not regret. Not sadness. Just freedom. After the ceremony, as we celebrated with the people who mattered, I caught a glimpse of someone standing just outside the venue. It was him, my father. He wasn't trying to come inside. He wasn't making a scene. He was just watching. For a moment, our eyes met, and for the first time, I saw something real in his expression. Not entitlement, not self-pity, loss. He had waited too long. And now, I wasn't waiting for him anymore. I turned back to Matt, smiling as he pulled me into a dance. And when I glanced toward the entrance again, my father was gone, and I never saw him again.